All right, so we've prepared a couple of questions. The good thing is they don't know from each other what they're going to answer, so we're going to make this into a nice conversation about using AI and what is AI. I'll mostly be hosting the panel, so every time they try to drag me into the conversation, I'll dodge it. Can I start with you, Neil? Can you do a quick introduction on who you are and what do you know about AI?
Yeah, hi, my name is Neil Shivdasani. I'm a product manager at Automatic. I work on AI. My first WordCamp, first time in Manila. I love it. And what do I know about AI? I've been working on like what you would consider recommendations or smart products of some sort for like a decade now. And AI is just what we call it now, but it's all about just making software easier to use for people. Nice,
thank you very much. Gabriella, who are you and what do you know about AI?
Hi, I'm Gabriella Lastra and I'm a product marketing director at Elementor. Sorry about that. This is also my first time at Manila and I'm also having a great time, so thank you for hosting us. What do I know about AI? I am responsible at Elementor for the AI site planner. So I have been working on AI products for about 2 years, I think, 2.5 years, when we first introduced our first AI product. And I'm an avid user, so
all right,
I care a lot about AI.
Noel, how about you?
What was the question, the original question? You're so far away.
Yeah. Who are you and what do you know about AI?
Okay, my name is Noel. I build WordPress websites. I don't know if anybody else does here, but it's very cool. In terms of AI, I got into it when DALL-E came out with ChatGPT and everything, and I just blew through all my credits. I had COVID, so it was a great productive use of time. And yeah, I just got into mid-journey after that, started running my own stable diffusion servers and just went all down the rabbit holes of image generation. So that's been my way into AI, and I've obviously enjoyed all the other aspects of the different models out there and trying to figure out how can this have an impact in just life and the things I do and how I kind of go about life, yeah.
Nice, thank you. Michelle.
And I'm Michelle, and I am the Director of Community Engagement for Stellar WP and the Executive Director of Post Status. And my journey with AI is very short because I haven't done a lot with it, but I have very strong opinions about it. So we'll see how those come out.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the most important things to make the panel a little bit engaging is those strong opinions. So we prepared a couple of questions, and as I'm not very good at memorizing them, I'll have my little notes here. So the first thing that I'd like to dive into is, because most of you are working with AI in your product, how did that come to be? Why did you decide to make that shift onto implementing AI in what you're offering? Can I start again with you, Neil?
Yeah, sure. So I mentioned that I've been working in like AI or smart products for a long time. Prior to what we call AI now, people would refer to recommendations and in-app intelligence as like AI essentially. And I think that it was the way that I was able to use my skills to make software easier for other people to use. And so as the conversation around smart products has evolved to generative AI, it's just kind of the natural place that I've been kind of drawn to.
All right. If at any point any one of you want to respond to each other, please do. So don't hesitate, don't be shy. There's not like there's a whole room of people watching. It's just us here. So is that very similar for you? Is it also about making the product easier to use for your users, or is there an added benefit to using AI?
I think it's about making workflows easier for users. So I think I've heard of GPT for years before ChatGPT was even consumer software at this point. And then once ChatGPT was introduced, we were exploring many different ways in which we can make the workflow faster. How can we introduce different AI features, different AI tools to make web creators' job easier, faster, better, smarter? How can we use that as a tool to empower our users?
All right, I see Michelle nodding.
Oh, yeah. So we've incorporated it into some of our products at Stellar WP as well, with the idea that you can spin up your website much faster if you can put some placeholder content in there that's actually about your product and about your service and your website. So when you can do that, you start with something that you can then build from. So our intention is never that you build a website, all of your content is AI generated, all of your images, all of those things, but that you have something to start with and to build from, because as we know, so many people, when they start to build their own website, they stare at the blank page and they don't know what to write. And so this allows them to give a place to really build from.
All right. I see more nodding. I hate agreement. But Noel, is that, I mean, I see you nod to what's being said around you.
Yeah, there's a lot of great points being made, and I agree with everything that everybody is saying, actually. From our side, from the more, and when I say our, I'm kind of saying enterprise, we've gone through this whole failed sort of AI phase, which was called personalization and DXPs and everything. You know, we got caught up in that too, and it was this thing that was tried to, it was pushed onto enterprise, sold into enterprise, never quite materially worked into like solid outcomes. And now we're finally seeing that opportunity come around, but that word DXP has kind of like faded back out into oblivion, which is, you know, good. But I really like the threads around workflows. I think a lot of it's about AI adjacency. It's not necessarily, oh, we're going to replace things. I do like the idea of kickstarting things with AI, so that's kind of a nudge. So there's just a lot of like great places to explore and do things inside of WordPress, outside of WordPress. I just think there's a lot of great opportunities in all of this.
Yeah, so far we've mostly been looking at outside of WordPress in the individual products. I know, Noel, that you really wanted to talk about AI in WordPress. Maybe this is a nice bridge. Is there a future for AI in core? Should we have something incorporated?
Oh, the can of worms. Yeah.
You had to put down the cup of coffee to start that one.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, I've written about this. I've spoken a bit about it. I do think there is room for an agentic layer, and I realize that agentic is kind of the buzzword right now. That can morph or evolve into other things as AI, LLMs, and the whole kind of industry keeps moving forward and innovates further. However, at this point in time, my feeling is that the next large opportunity for WordPress is to essentially replicate what we've done with the plugin ecosystem, this third-party ecosystem, but to give every plugin the opportunity to add this AI layer on top of it, which is then living to some kind of standard or blueprint that is then intertwined in one way or another with core then, and these multiple agents can then work together to produce various outcomes. And I'm not necessarily talking about some kind of creative masterpiece, but at a very basic level, interacting with REST APIs, different data points, creating workflows, whatever that may be, I think there's just a huge opportunity there.
Wouldn't that interfere with what you're currently building in your product if things move to core too much?
No, definitely not. I think that we're at an interesting time right now where a lot of the systems and the UX patterns and like the way that these assistants and agents are being built is still being formed. But simultaneously, you know, right now, most consumers think of AI as API calls to paid providers. But we're moving towards a point where all hardware will have neural cores or neural processors on board. And at that point in time, AI becomes truly democratized. And so it becomes very easy and probably an expectation for all software to incorporate AI because it's free, essentially.
I think also the introduction of AI is an evolution. It's not a replacement of anything. So it will evolve within WordPress. It will allow WordPress to grow. It will evolve the ecosystem to grow. It will allow website building to grow. So I don't see that as a negative thing at all.
I think when you talk about whether it's going to replace some of the things that we have in our own products, you're actually hinting at something that's an even a bigger issue I've had conversations with publicly about before, which is how do we decide what goes into core that's already out in the ecosystem? And how is it going to disrupt the balance of people who are making money from those plugins and those themes and things that they've already built? So I think it's a much bigger question than, than just should it be in core or not. I think it's something that we really have to consider the whole community and ecosystem about. That said, there have been so many times when people are like, put their feet in and they're just not going to start using Gutenberg or the block editor and things like that. And I think that at some point in time, we take a step back and say, is this for the greater good? Can this help us all as we move forward? And if the answer is yes, then we figure out a way to incorporate it not only into core, but that the ecosystem builds up around it.
I like, in this case, the agreement there, which is unusual for me. So if we look at AI, we just had a speed build where Nick Diego was using AI to build a plugin that was almost perfect, almost. But is there, we're talking about AI as helping our workflow, helping people do stuff. Out there in the world, there's also a lot of people who are afraid that AI will take their jobs, will kill creativity. Is that something that you worry for when you're looking at the AI implementation in your products, that it might negatively affect the people who are currently doing the stuff that the AI now takes over? Gabriella, can I start with you?
Sure. I'm not worried. I think that it allows us to be a lot more creative if we know how to use it properly. I think that if we're not using it, we're spending a lot of time working on redundant tasks or doing things that prevent us from being able to focus on the more creative sides of things. So I don't think it hurts creativity at all.
So Noel, ready to jump in already?
I'm always ready. So I think it's analogous somewhat to like film camera to digital camera, and how you had that whole wave then, and all the film photographers were like, "This is horrible. It's breaking the industry. These people don't know how to take quality photos, and they're devaluing the market by bringing the prices down." And that's kind of what AI is. And you have a lot of people just building stuff with like shoddy code, but the outcome works. So there's just a rebalancing, and people, I think, need to get to terms with these things, because there's this competitive moat you might have in your sector. Let's say film photography just gets blown up from one day to the next through a new technology, or you have your taxi medallions in New York, and all of a sudden Uber comes in and destroys the whole thing. So there's always that risk, and chances are nobody's going to protect that other side. So yeah, evolve or die, I guess.
I think too that it's a tool, right? So AI is a tool. If you pick up a hammer and you try to pound a nail with the other side of it, you're not going to be very successful in building a house. So you have to learn how to use the tool to have an effective outcome. And so, the whole saying I grew up with is garbage in, garbage out. The inputs that you put into AI are going to be what causes good things to come out or trash to come out, right? So we really need to learn to use the tools. It's not just like everybody has AI and everything is going to be awesome, because just like any tool, the more you use it and craft it and effective use of it, the better the outcome is going to be, the better your workflows are going to be, the better the output for writing, the better the output for code, all of those things.
Yeah, I think something that we sometimes lose track of as people in the industry is that most people who need websites are not website people. For example, if someone has like a photography blog, they probably care more about photography than they do about blogging. And WordPress in the community is a tool for those people to get onto the web and to publish and to build communities and to share their thoughts. And the more people that do that, and the easier it is, the better it is for the web, the better it is for WordPress. But they're always going to need that community and the tooling as a layer to help them accomplish their goals, which is, again, usually not blogging. It's the thing that they're passionate about: photography, travel, etc.
Yeah, but so back in the day, they would turn to someone to help them build the site for them so that they could upload their photos. And now they can do it themselves. So that takes out that middleman, basically.
I think I totally understand that concern. I think that there will always be a desire and even like a need for like truly bespoke, high-touch relationships with people building websites. And the more people there are that want to be on the web and get on the web, the more demand there will be for people who facilitate that process.
I'd like to add to that when Elementor was first introduced, I think there were a lot of web creators who were concerned that you have a drag and drop builder, this is very easy, you're not going to need web creators anymore. But in reality, what happened is that you got a lot more web creators. You had a lot more people entering this industry. So I think the same thing can happen with AI. Yes, there are always going to be people who can then build their websites on their own. These tools are available today within WordPress, outside of WordPress. I don't think that necessarily takes away from a web creator. You're going to need that bespoke websites. You're going to need the customization that not everyone's going to be able to achieve. And not everyone's going to know how to do that with AI also, because garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly.
Yeah, sorry, just a quick note. Like, I really appreciated what Nick was doing earlier. I thought that was awesome. One thing that was really crucial about that is that you still have to speak the language in order to make that work. And again, photographers, food journalists, that's not the language they speak.
Yeah, so you're not all out of a job. I mean, that's good to know. So now that we agree that we still need that human aspect, we still need the people who know what they're talking about. You said it's a professional that can speak the language to use the AI to create something new, create something better, and probably create it faster. How do you already see AI being used in your own workplaces? We saw Nick do the cursor demo basically before. Is there a lot of tooling that's already being used at Stellar, for example?
Yeah, so like in marketing, it's great to use AI and set up personas. It's great to have ideas of ways to market to different groups because you've set up ways to actually interact and figure out what works and doesn't before you actually do it to your public. And there's lots of ways that we incorporate it just in, like, for example, I might write an article for one of our blogs, and I love it, but I can't think of a title. ChatGPT, what's a good title for something about XYZ? And then maybe I'll use it, maybe I won't, maybe I'll use part of A and part of B. But it's just one of those things that kind of spurs you a little bit further and assists you, again, a tool, as opposed to writing everything for you. I have written an entire article using ChatGPT for post status with a description at the top saying, hey, ChatGPT wrote this for me to see if I could do it. Nobody had an opinion on it because it was like, okay, that's kind of boring. Well, yeah, it was boring. It wasn't me writing, right? It wasn't my voice. But if you set up things in your voice and you really train it well, then it can be the tool that you want it to be to help move things forward. Is it going to replace our writers for all of our blogs? No, of course not. Is it going to assist them to be better writers if they lean into it the right way that they want to? Some people don't want to use it at all, and that's fine because we like the way they write. But if you have somebody doing something that's not their bailiwick, so to speak, or their area of expertise, having those tools there to start and work from is something that I think is really important. And so we do allow those things to be used at Stellar because it's important that people have the tools to make them successful.
Nice. And is that similar for you? Is there a lot of AI use producing your product already?
I definitely, at Automatic, we're really excited about AI, both for our users and for our coworkers and employees. I think a really impressive use case that I've seen recently is designers who no longer use Figma, but instead build functional prototypes out of code. And this doesn't replace software engineers. It actually strengthens the connection between designers and software engineers by bridging the gap and giving them a common language. And I've had people tell me that something that used to take them days, they can now build a functional prototype that you can feel in 30 minutes.
I definitely call that an improvement, yeah. Is that similar at Elementor? Is it also heavily used already?
we're using it in a lot of different departments in different ways. We're using it in marketing to create content. We're using it in customer experience to help agents find answers to some of the questions faster. We're using it in code. Obviously, we're using Cursor. We're using it in our products. But one use case that I found also very helpful recently is sometimes we'll get a lot of feedback from users. We'd send out surveys. We'd want to learn about what users need. And sometimes you'll get 6,000, 7,000 different responses. So how do you read through 6,000, 7,000 responses? When I started working at Elementor back in 2021, we had to read it manually. So we had each person on our team read through 300 different responses to try and get a picture. Now I can feed that all into an AI and have it cluster into topics for me and understand if there's a trend, if there is something. I can gain a lot of valuable insights very, very quickly.
Nice. That sounds really good. Do you then sometimes go back and verify that what you got out was actually what customers said?
100%. And when I do that, I also ask for it to give me snapshots. So tell me on what row you found this example on, and I'll go and I'll check.
Nice.
Trust but verify.
Well, yeah, for sure, for sure. And I mean, there's also a luxury problem because getting 6,000 responses to a survey is not something that a lot of users will do, but that's probably the benefit that you have with the skill at Elementor. So that's pretty awesome use, yeah. Let me look at the next question, because we talked about, in our preparation, about free and open source software, about WordPress. Miriam had a really nice presentation on GPL and the difference between free and open source software this morning. So we already touched a little bit on including AI in WordPress, creating that base layer. But would it make sense, given that a significant part of the AI models is also open source, to sort of find a model that would be trained specifically for WordPress sites? Is that realistic? Is there a WordPress speed build AI that we should train together?
We actually spoke about this at some point, I think almost a year ago, a human-made. By the way, we're called human-made, so we don't use any AI whatsoever, obviously. Like it's against our company name. But I think the idea back then was already that the models were so good that you didn't need to fine-tune it per se. I think you could potentially fine-tune it on past GitHub repos and issues you've had with clients and how you've solved them and everything. Obviously, you need consent and other things, but potentially there's a way there. I don't think there's a definite answer from my side, at least, from our business. We're open to exploring it in the future, obviously, but no definite answer. I mean, we're quite happy with how powerful the models are becoming every month, every day. That we why even try to catch up with the next model?
Yeah, I think it's something that we've explored and talked about at Automatic, and I think we're fortunate that WordPress has such a long history and is so well documented that even a standard off-the-shelf model is pretty well versed in WordPress. But as Michelle mentioned earlier, AI is a tool, and it's only valuable if it helps you achieve a goal. Thus far, we've primarily been able to achieve our goals with AI without thinking about fine-tuning.
All right. And so if we look at, for example, ChatGPT being one of the, I think, most popular AI models at the moment, that is definitely not open sourced. Would there be a reason not to use it because you're in the WordPress ecosystem and are open source advocates?
Use the right tool for what you need. So we're open source, but we also pay for services. We pay for tools. We buy subscriptions. We use other people's plugins. So paying for the tools that you need to accomplish the job is not something that we're opposed to doing.
There are different models for different purposes. I'll use ChatGPT for strategizing. I'll use Claude for copy. I think that having all these models is also a competition. It'll allow other AI LLMs to create open source models. I think I agree. You should choose the right tool for the job, whatever it is.
I mean, LLMs are a bit like toothpaste at the moment. You walk into a grocery store and you just pick out whichever one, right? Like, there's not that big of a difference. It's the wrappers around that that make a lot more sense. So something like on the workflow side, I love using N8N, and that's not something that's just going to fall away tomorrow and be replaced by something else. I mean, maybe. On the image generation side, that's Comfy UI, which is like a similar kind of workflow builder. So these wrappers and these tools that go around and get that exponential outcome from the LLM, that's amazing. Like those tools is where, okay, I'm more invested. But the LLM, I'm at least using 5 or 6. Just for fun, like it's just part of it. Like Perplexity for my Google searches, I use Claude Opus to write, I use Claude Sonnet to generate text through APIs from Telegram messages. The list keeps going, right? Like it's dime a dozen.
All right. So right now, and we've already touched on that you all have some version of AI incorporated. Are you falling behind as a company if you do not have any AI solution, either built in or an offer for your customers? Is it a necessity or is it a hype? Neil?
Yeah, I'm going to repeat something that I think everyone on the stage has said at this point, which it's just about if it helps you achieve your goals or not. That being said, to put it differently, if you adopt AI because you want to adopt AI, like if adopting AI is your goal, you might be setting yourself up for failure because there's not a real measure of success there. Similarly, if you don't adopt AI simply because you don't want to adopt AI, you're also potentially setting yourself up for failure. You have a problem you're trying to solve, and AI is a tool that can maybe help you solve it, and it's worth evaluating.
He stole my answer.
Yeah, she told me.
All right, yeah, so...
Can I jump in for a second and say,
Sure.
Besides in our products, there are other ways that we use AI as a company, right? So we have people who maybe writing is not their strong point, but they have to send emails. So I know somebody in our accounts office who goes to ChatGPT and say, how can I deny a refund in a kinder, gentler way? And they get a better outcome so that when they have to tell somebody you're way outside of the refund window, they're able to say it in a way that doesn't sound as harsh. And so it makes our customer success department, it makes our support department stronger because they have more empathy when they are able to use the tools that can help them write that way. So there's way more areas than just in our code that we can use and just in our building and our products to use ChatGPT and other AI to be able to do our jobs.
You spoke a bit about falling behind, like as a kind of word, and I feel like that's the sort of FOMO of, hey, all this AI is happening, what are we doing? And I feel like the technology is so far now that like your own creativity is like the limiter. It's not the technology anymore. Even when I first installed N8N and I could create anything I wanted in the world, I was stuck. I was like, what do I build first, right? And you realize that it's actually a fair amount of work and thought to put into putting together more complex workflows or multi-step flows that are really AI driven and then replace parts of your life, let's say, than just, hey, help me SEOify this text or give me headlines or something, right? Like those are table stakes at this point, but all this other stuff that is really the game changer in terms of value for business, and where I think there's a lot of hope to find savings in the future and operational efficiency, is blocked by humans right now. Like that is the block. It's not GPU, it's not anything else, it's not the models. So I think everybody's at a similar point, and if you feel like you're somehow behind, you're not, but you should get on top of it.
Yeah, so if you're not using AI yet, definitely start looking into it, but to solve a problem and not just to use AI. That's basically what I hear you say together. Yeah, so I'm going to look at the audience for a little bit. Who is using AI in their products and workflows already? Do a raise of hands. That's quite a few, but nowhere near everyone. So might be an opportunity for you to take a look there. I want to go into a little bit of a different side of AI. Based off of a conversation that I had earlier today, let's imagine that we live in a world where we don't have sort of static websites anymore, but every time that you go to a website, the content will be generated specifically for you based on your personality and what it knows about you that you would want to hear from the company in your voice. Is that a future that you see as a good idea, or is that something that you worry about? Gabriella, can I start with you?
The question reminds me a lot about advertising. So if you go to social platforms, a lot of times these social platforms, they learn about you. They know what type of ads to present to you. And there are people who love it. There are people who hate it. There are people who are very careful and they want to keep their privacy, so they don't like it when all of a sudden you're talking about a vacation and you get recommendations for different hotels on Booking. Personally, I do enjoy it. I think it makes my life a lot easier because I know that if I'm looking into something specific, it makes it easier for me to find the content that I'm interested in, whatever it is. But I think people will will have mixed feelings towards it.
Michelle, you want to respond to that?
I think I'm going to use a developer answer and say it depends. Because it really does depend, right? It depends on how it's being used. It depends on, I think too, so I've been thinking a lot as we've been talking that AI stands for artificial intelligence, right? But it didn't create itself. How artificial is it really? It's created by people. And so it's what we create for others to be able to use. And yes, everybody feeds into it. It isn't one person that decides what the answers are. But it's used in a way, if it's not nefarious, right, that does things like makes time easier. We search for things. We use things that have all these algorithms into it. And if we're using it properly, it could really be time-saving, and it could really, kind of be more efficient. But I think that there's always the opportunity for people to use it in a poor way.
I'm absolutely on board for hyper-personalized everything, and I'm pretty sure that's coming quite soon. So even if Perplexity adds the ability for that, I'm super happy, because if I have to read a blog post or a long text, I'm out. My love language is bullet points. So sign me up for the little stuff, the details, make it punchy, give me that. Even DeepSeek is a bit very bullet pointy in its responses. I'm like, great. So yeah, absolutely. I'm in. There's no question about that. And I think we already see a high degree of personalization in the market. I think Nielsen and other media companies have run surveys in the past, and there's pretty high compliance from people saying, hey, I give consent and all that kind of good stuff. So I absolutely see that business model going forward for some of these voice-driven, consumer-facing LLM apps like Perplexity and ChatGPT.
Yeah, what you described to me doesn't actually sound that different from the internet right now. If you go to most social media, which is where a lot of people consume the internet, it is customized. What I think AI, I definitely think it's going to change the way we interact with content online. I don't think anybody really knows exactly what that's going to look like, but I think at the very least AI offers a level of flexibility where people can engage with the content in the way that they want to. So they can get summaries, they can go into more detail, they can ask for more questions. But yeah, I don't know. That sounds like an improvement to me.
So I find that interesting because it worries the hell out of me. And I'll explain why. Right now, if I want to get the news, I have a choice between 10 different news websites that all have their own angle. If I, to use an American example, go to Fox News, it will definitely be very different from reading The Guardian from the UK. I'm afraid that if all of these newspapers start sort of on the fly generating their news, is that there's no way for me to burst out of my own bubble anymore and get a new view on the world. Even though I might disagree with the Fox News approach to the world, it can be interesting to sort of challenge my own beliefs. But if everything's adapted to my beliefs, then how do we learn from each other? How do you learn that there's other perspectives?
2 words: incognito browser.
I mean, I think you just described a scenario in which you intentionally make a choice to burst out of your bubble. And I don't think that's going to go anywhere. I think people can always get new information, information from different types of sources, regardless of what the channel is. You know, if it's conversational, if it's different news websites. I don't think that this changes that necessarily.
I want to add to that. As we were talking before you brought your opinion, I was going to play devil's advocate for a minute and say, I think that it can be a little bit scary if we are only getting our point of view, if everything is becoming personalized to whatever it is that we think today. It can be biased. It can, at some point, eventually also limit creativity because you're not exposed to a lot of different opinions and topics. But I wonder if there are also ways where that can be, where maybe not, depends on the format it's being consumed, but maybe you're being presented with different opinions, answers at the same time.
I mean, aren't we already getting like our viewpoint ready? Like my whole TikTok is just dogs and pandas doing silly things. Like I don't get anything else. Like I am in that chamber now. Like I can't get out of it. Aren't we all there?
Well, yes, on social media, but no on news sites, I would say. So, and that's where, for me, there's a difference, where I want the news to be as objective, because that's already in air quotes, but as objective as possible, so that I see what's happening, and not just that there's more pandas born in
But we
every
already
place.
do that by choosing which news site we visit, right? So,
If
we have that
anything,
option.
oh, sorry, I'm sorry.
No, I just said we have the option, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, if anything, I think AI enables a perhaps more advanced level of like unbiasing of news by being able to aggregate news sources and give you multiple perspectives through one channel. And there are products that do that now, like Ground News is a popular one. You know, we've talked on this panel about how AI is something that facilitates workflows. To the extent that there is a workflow for collecting varying viewpoints, that can become an AI app that is perhaps the most consumable way to get multiple perspectives.
Yeah, and well, at the very least, then Noel can get his beloved bullet points. All right. I'm looking at our timekeeper, where we're at, because we had a little bit of a rocky start. What we also briefly touched on when we were preparing for this panel was DeepSeek. You just named it as well, Noel. That sort of came out of nowhere for most of the world, at least ask NVIDIA. Are we going to see more of those sort of disruptive models appear in the near future?
What kind of bubbles? Sorry? You said what kind of bubbles?
More the disruptive models, AI models.
Oh, models, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I mean, I think there's a disruptive model of some sort every other month at this point. Whether more of them will be, I mean, I'm sure more of them will be disruptive due to their open source nature, but I think that we're just in a state of constant disruption right now.
It's just fully commoditized. Like okay, they have an edge for like 3 weeks, and then the other people figure it out, or they copy each other, or do something else. Like it's how you use that software. It's like, where is that getting plugged in, and how are you using that? Like that's the important part. Again, like I like using N8N, and I've switched out models there, but I haven't switched out N8N itself. So I'm actually showing more loyalty to a much simpler piece of software in terms of how much it costs to build one and the other.
And I mean, you say you're sort of invested in a single model, or you're switching?
I'm always switching, yeah.
Always switching. And is that true for all of you? We already talked about picking the right tool for the right job, but Is it something that you easily switch around, or you feel like, I'm now used to the way that Claude does things for this specific task, I'm going to stick with it?
Yeah, I actually think, so Noel, you're describing kind of like personal use, right?
Yes.
I think that like from a product perspective and in a software company, it's almost a distraction to worry about what's happening every week, because it's often the energy that it takes to investigate that will probably not net like a positive return. But as these things like continue to bake and like establish themselves and like the results that they get, yeah, it's absolutely worth evaluating new things. But I wouldn't drop what we're doing to evaluate a new approach or model every week, which is the rate at which they come out.
Fair, yeah.
I feel like I need to test every new model. It took me a long time. In the beginning, it was difficult for me, and when you try new different products, it can be a little bit difficult to scan through the results you get, even because they're presented differently. What we've learned also at Elementor is that we work with a number of different vendors, and sometimes we'll test different vendors for the results they give, and we can see that certain requests, activities, consistently do better with one model over the other, so we're constantly switching them up depending on what gives a better answer for a specific need. So I feel like I don't have a choice. I feel like I have to. Otherwise, I do feel like I will be left behind, or I won't be as accomplished or work fast enough, as fast as I could.
I mean, we work in an industry that's constantly evolving. So if we weren't continuing to evaluate tools that also constantly evolve, that's a bit of a disconnect for me anyway.
All right. Another look at our timekeeper. Where are we at? 10 more minutes? 18 more minutes. That's nice. Okay, so then we're completely disrupting the schedule today. I like that. All right, so we've talked about using AI in products. We've talked about using AI in our open source project in WordPress. I'm curious if you have, without spoiling any company secrets, if there's anything on your mind that you would like to see happen with AI in our ecosystem in the next 6 to 12 months, which I understand is a very long time in the current speed of development. But is there anything specific that you're really looking forward to? And I'll start with Michelle.
I have friends that have developed plugins very quickly using AI because so much of the coding has already been introduced there, and they're able to do that. We also have, just like we have agencies and we have enterprise and then we have individual users who decide to start their own website, I think that it could be used simply like that as well, right? So I think that there's a possibility for us to use it at different scales and be able to accomplish what we need to. Going right back to like, if it's the right tool, to use the right tool, so.
Noel? I see you smile. I like that.
Yeah, no. I mean, Michelle's got a great point. We've come out with a lot of point features on different plugins, and we're demoing cool little snazzy things. And when we talk about ecosystem, then the natural thing is like, what is the ecosystem play? What's the larger thing that elevates, like rises all tides, and elevates the entire game and almost like shifts up the game for WordPress? And I think that's very interesting. I don't think there's even what I proposed before in terms of like this agentic ecosystem, I don't think that's like the final state or any kind of draft state per se. I just think that's a way to go. So for 6 months even, we can be talking a lot about discovery, because trying to be a first mover in this space now is going to cost a lot of money in R&D and really screw us up. So maybe there's a pace that follows the industry, but then also keeps up that discussion. So if anything, I would like to see a bit of a working group around that, and to then see those ecosystem plays come to life, or ideas. Maybe there's one underlying kind of big idea, and maybe there's a sub ideas there. But really just getting into discovery of that as a community.
Yeah, I've mentioned this a few times, but I'm all about outcomes over outputs. And to me, like the goal is to lower the barrier of entry for the open web so that more people can have like their own home on the web. And in terms of how that manifests, there's dozens of ways and it's changing constantly, but I think that this will grow the open web and grow the WordPress community by making it easier to participate.
I think it would be exciting to see a lot more adoption of AI, a lot less fear towards it. It's hard for me to pinpoint something specific that I would want to see technological-wise, but I think we can use a lot of integrations that already exist. We don't need to build things from scratch. It doesn't need to be very expensive. We can take inspiration from other industries and see how we can integrate other tools into the WordPress ecosystem.
Can I ask a question of my fellow panelists?
Sure.
Do you think that there should be some kind of industry governance or guidelines into how we use AI as we move forward?
What would you want those guidelines to accomplish?
I don't even know that I want them. I'm asking what you think.
I think that AI is moving very quickly, and so it's hard to pin down how it should work and how it should operate. And it's also important to try not to slow things down because we want it to work a specific way. And so, maybe someday, but I don't necessarily think that would be useful right now.
I think we want to hope that the people building different AI capabilities are ethical and moral and try to avoid bias as much as possible. I don't see any regulation being set in place so quickly. I don't even think we know how it's going to evolve, I agree. So I think ethics and morals are important.
And I agree with Gabby here, and I think we'll also see, we'll have to align to certain guidelines coming out, and I'm assuming Europe will more or less always be the highest standard in that regard, and maybe a select few countries also, and then we will probably want to abide by those things, those rules, whatever it may be, so I'm all on board for that.
Yeah, and I also think that it's already hard to see what the current legislation, how far it is behind to what we can do on the web. I mean, we had the European cookie law a couple of years ago, which led to a lot of awful banners, but didn't really solve a problem. And I think that, yes, at some point there will be, and hopefully it will go towards the ethical rules and hopefully something inclusion-based. But that's going to take quite a while before the lawmakers have caught up with what's happening in the development of AI at this pace that we're seeing now. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, will take a while. I do have a little hook on what you just said, Gabriella, is to lessen the fear of AI. And that immediately gets me thinking about my parents and my in-laws who are not digital natives, as I would call them, and that's quite the understatement. Sorry if you're watching. Is there a generational difference that we need to solve short-term to get the people who are not into our field comfortable with AI, or is this let that generation go and we'll focus on the future and the kids will understand because they're so used to using technology?
I think it's part of our responsibility to make AI tools and capabilities more accessible. So a way we can do that is how do we make AI capabilities feel native? How do we make it feel contextual to what I'm doing at this exact moment in time? I don't think it's appropriate to give up on a generation because they're not as tech savvy. You have different organizations that are helping older people with how to use a phone or the internet or things like that. I think you would have to do the same with AI at some point. But as product creators, we can help bridge that gap.
Yeah, I think maybe I'm making assumptions here, but it's quite often the case that people don't adopt new technologies because it's kind of confusing and hard to understand this new way of working. AI is entirely bucks that trend in that it's entirely conversational for the most part, and there's so much you can do just by communicating the way you already communicate. And so I actually don't think it will be difficult for anyone to adopt this. I think it just is a function of when does it solve a problem that they have, and like when do they realize that it solves a problem that they have.
My mother is 76, and when I told her what I was going to be on a panel about, she said, "Is there any way that I can make Facebook stop telling me what to post?" So I think there is some level of, not necessarily excluding, but she wants to find the toggle that says, how do I turn this off? I just want to post a recipe or, whatever she wants to write about. And so I think we have to be careful with how we approach some certain populations of people who may or may not feel comfortable with the technology, and also may feel they're being spied on, and all of these things that come along with older generations. I mean, I'm an older generation, right? But I'm in tech, so it's a little bit different for me. But for some people, it's a very scary thing.
Yeah, that's why I specifically used the not digital natives, because that includes more than people of a certain age, but it's basically everyone who didn't grow up with technology, with that phone in hand. The conversation I had with my kids talking about a CD, they had no idea what a CD was, made me feel old. But to them, a screen that you cannot use as a touch screen is strange. Why would you have that?
But also they are, like my mother, for example, she was a young adult in the 60s and 70s, and she sees things like 2001, A Space Odyssey, that HAL won't open the pod bay doors, and that AI is becoming sentient. It's going to make decisions for us. And in some respects, she's right, because doctors are leaning into looking for diagnoses and things like that using AI. And so I understand her fear because of her history. And so I think that we just have to have a careful approach with how we help people understand how to use it.
And do you think that in a few years, to lean into that HAL example, that in a few years we'll have 4 computers sitting in a chair here talking about how to get rid of the human race?
I would watch that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I don't think it's a realistic scenario at this point, but yeah. We have a few more minutes, 5 more minutes. So what I would like to do is get sort of a final statement from all of you on this is what you should do with AI, shouldn't do with AI, this is what you should lean into or check out in the products that you're building and give feedback on. I mean, there's a little bit room for promotion, of course. But yeah, just curious on sort of your final send-off message to our audience here and at home. I started with you all the time, so now I'm going to start with Michelle.
I want to lean into what Gabby said about being ethical and moral about how we use it, because the more we use the AI, we're training it. So we're teaching, things how it works, and that's using all of that information. So what you put in, what you put out, garbage in, garbage out, all of that. But also think about it ethically and morally as you're using it. I think it's an amazing tool, and I think that we're all going to be for the better because of it in the end.
Thank you. Noel.
I'm going to come back to the agentic AI ecosystem play, and I think that's the biggest opportunity we have ahead of us in this community. I think it's an evolution of the REST API. The REST API allows you to have various functions or features communicate with each other, websites, whatever, and an agentic sort of or network or ecosystem then transforms that into something way more intelligent. It takes a phone line and turns it into fiber for just very high throughput, high flow intelligence across an entire network, which could really change the way that WordPress works. So I'm very interested in that big play. So yeah, that's where my mind's at.
I would say I think everyone should keep adopting AI. I think everyone should try exploring it, even if sometimes you're not getting the results you want, even if you're not building the tool that you're happy with necessarily. I'll be promotional for a second. We built the AI Copilot about a year ago, and that led us to building the site planner, which is so far a huge success. Our users are loving it. The feedback's amazing. But it came from an experiment that didn't work as well as we would have wanted to in the beginning. I think that if all of us are using it, if different products are introducing new AI capabilities, and that can really take the WordPress ecosystem way forward.
Yeah, I think everything that everyone has said is just like spot on. The thing that comes to mind for me is that it's really valuable to just keep an open mind and to understand how this can help you solve your problems. Because if you don't keep an open mind, that's when you might get left behind.
All right. I can imagine that after hearing all your wisdom today, people would want to reach out to you, follow you on social media. What's the best place for them to find you, to interact with you, besides, of course, here at WordCamp Asia? Neil, where do they find you?
Neil, Neel.sh is my website. It has links to all my social, or just come say hi.
The easiest way to find me would be on LinkedIn right now, so that would be Gabriella Laster.
If you want to see pictures of cute dogs, then it's Instagram, Noel Talk. If you want to see pictures of cute dogs, then it's LinkedIn, Noel Talk.
Nice.
And mine is meetmichelle.online.
All right. And if you want to find me, then either go to LinkedIn, Taco Verdo, or Twitter, where I'm still active for now. All right. I want to thank you very, very much for being here today on the panel, sharing your wisdoms, and let's see where we're at in a year.
Thanks, Taco.
Thank you for moderating.